Okay, today is Tuesday, October 18th. It's 5:30. This is a hybrid meeting of the Monroe County Plan Commission, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Would you please call the roll, Ms. Nestor Jelen?
John Henry Randolph,
Here.
Bernie Garitas,
Here.
Jeff McKeon, Dee Owens,
Yes, here.
Jerry Pittsford is coming on his way. Julie Thomas here. Jeff Morris
Here.
Margaret Clemens here. And we do not have any attendees from the city. We have 6 members and a quorum present currently.
Okay, great. Would you please introduce the evidence?
Sure. I'd like to introduce the following items into the evidence. The Monroe County zoning ordinance is adopted and amended. Monroe County comprehensive plan is adopted and amended. The Monroe County subdivision control ordinance is adopted and amended. The Monroe County Plan Commission rules and procedure is adopted and amended. And the cases that were legally advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
So moved. Second.
Been seconded, Bernie Garitas.
Yep.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
John Henry Randolph.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and I believe that once Margaret has to leave by 6:30, Jerry should be here, so there shouldn't be an interruption of the quorum.
Great.
So we won't have to rearrange that.
Thank
Okay, Dee Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens,
Yes.
John Henry Randolph,
Yes.
Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Okay, passes 6-0.
Okay, is there any discussion or a motion to approve the minutes from the August 2nd, the August 16th, and the September 20th meetings of our Plan Commission?
I know I missed one for the first time this year and I'm not sure which one, so I'll try to skim it real quick so I can recuse myself on that one.
Is there a motion to approve any of them?
Yes, so moved.
You're good, Dee, go ahead.
Okay, I'll move to accept the minutes of August the 2nd, August the 16th, and September the 20th.
I'll second that.
It is a motion to approve all 3 minutes, August 2nd, 16th, and September 20th, 2022. A motion in favor is a motion to approve. Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
I vote since I wasn't at coach two, September 20th.
did you review the minutes?
I've read over them. Yes.
Okay, then yes, you may have
Okay.
reviewed them.
Yes, I approve.
Okay, Margaret Clemens.
Yes.
John Henry Randolph.
If I watched the cat's video, is that reviewing the minutes? Because I did
Yes.
watch the video, but I didn't actually review the minutes.
Record. Let's put it this way. I think it's.
Will you call to me last?
I'll
and
do
see
you
if we
last.
did?
Yeah, Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
We already have a 5.
I'll recuse myself.
Okay. Oh, 5-0 to 1.
Okay, the first item on our administrative business agenda is to again welcome Mr. Jeffrey Morris. He's agreed to serve on our Plan Commission, and we will now swear you in. And if you would please kindly raise your right hand and read the oath before you, that would be wonderful.
I, Jeff Morris, do solemnly swear that I will support the constitutions of the United States of America and the state of Indiana, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform my duties as a Monroe County Plan Commission member according to the law and to the best of my skill and ability.
Thank you so much, and thank you for agreeing to serve. We really need representatives and citizens like you to step up to the plate, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And then the second item on the administrative business agenda is the meeting calendar for 2023. I don't know what, is there a motion? Do we need to approve this?
Well, I think I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about the meeting.
Yes.
Calendar, just so that we have a second to look through and think through maybe any changes. So just a heads up, we do not have the county council's meeting scheduled quite yet. I did ask and they were kind of in scurry mode to get the budgets for 23 approved right now, so we don't have that. So I intend on bringing this back with any amendments.
Okay.
Because we'll have room conflicts. So as tonight, just for reference for the next time we do this, this is a regular meeting that's in 100B, which is unusual. we can list it on the calendar, or if people would prefer us to give you another date, like a Monday or a Thursday, where we could still be in the Nat U Hill for the plan commission, that's something I may want your opinions on that, if you prefer the Nat U Hill room for regular meetings.
I do personally, just because it's more comfortable for the petitioner, I think. So when possible, we could try that, and if we can't find an amenable date, then we have it here on the regular date and make do, I guess, but.
Yeah.
Dee has her hand up. I'll go after her since she raised it.
Somebody saw this?
Thanks, John. Thank you, Margaret. I noticed November the 7th is listed as administrative meeting date. And while, yes, that's the correct date, that's also the municipal elections. And also realizing that we represent county, not Bloomington, it still might be a date that is problematic.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Jerry Pittsburgh has arrived and so is here in person. Thank you.
So Dee, that is a good point. I don't, we can move that meeting date. We don't have it off in the county schedule. We have 2 floating holidays that people could take during that time. But if the plan commission would like us to still avoid that, since it's election day, we can move that date.
I think I support Dee's comment. I think just the fact that we might try to conduct business while other people are on vacation just kind of seems not a good approach. So also I wanted to comment about the meeting location. I think that we should absolutely continue to try to have our regular scheduled, and you said regular scheduled, right? Not just administrative in the Nate Hill room. Not just due to the public and them being able to speak at the podium, but just the ability that CAT has to record and stream our videos. I think it's nicer just from that point of view as well. So I think there's a lot of inherent value for us to continue Nate Hill rooms for our regular sessions. So I just wanted to echo that support.
So we have to deal with some reaction. Right.
So then I guess there would also be the primary then in May, that we want to schedule around. Don't have that calendar up, but Dee, if you still have that calendar up, do you know if May 2nd is also the conflict then for the municipal elections?
Well, it appears to be the first Tuesday after the first Monday, so yeah, it would be.
I'll also move that. All right. We did not avoid IU spring break this year. Right. Anything with an asterisk on it is a moved date. So in December, we moved meetings up earlier to be able to try and achieve a quorum for the plan commission regular session, sort of like this year. We will have the admin meeting the first Tuesday, and then we have the regular session the second Tuesday in December. That's to avoid the later half of the month in December.
But you've done a great job. I think this has been a great job. You've got a lot of moving parts, but you're capturing it well. Do you want any vote tonight, or do you want to?
I think we'll go ahead and wait, but we are just gonna tell people to go ahead. So we already have filings that are into the January deadline, so we're gonna go ahead and use the first parts of this schedule, just so you know, to
Okay.
give people guidance. So the first parts, January, February, go ahead and keep those in your calendars and schedules. Those shouldn't change. It's more, we'll fix the May, November, and then I'm anticipating, go ahead and change the May and November dates. Does anyone want us to schedule around spring break, IU break, or other conflicts that you can think of?
I just have a question, and it's why the ordinance ORC is grayed out. It just catches my eye. Just
Yeah.
curious.
We added, maybe 2 years ago, the filing deadline for historic preservation and historic preservation date. Since ORC technically is on its own, it doesn't, we can add color coding in. I think we just use it as sort of a breaking point because people can start there and then they know to go to the next one.
It doesn't have filing deadlines, so that's why it's.
Yeah, it's.
Like I said, it's just catching my eye. I was just kind of curious.
Been on one sheet. Okay. Any other comments of things that we should avoid? Change? Like this for BZA, I guess we can always deal with that within groups too, if people are on BZA. Okay, we'll go ahead and move forward with that. And we don't need a vote right now.
Okay, well, wonderful. So let's move on to the next item on administrative business, and that's item number 3, LUC 22-12, and this is Pinnacle Business Park Major Subdivision Final Plat and a request for a reduction of the subdivision improvement agreement. So I think that who will be going over this?
Ian is joining us.
Hey, Sam, if you would please talk with us about this.
Absolutely. So this is under LUC 2212. This is for Pinnacle Business Park Major Subdivision Final Plat that was completed in 2019. This is for drainage improvements that were required for the 15-lot subdivision. So the original performance bond was for $82,560.69. There was a condition that there would be updated as-built submitted and approved for the drainage work. So on the screen, we see the final plat. Here are part of the as-builts that were provided for some of the drainage improvement areas. So the ordinance states that there's a 2-year maintenance bond is required after the construction has been completed to the specifications laid out in the approved construction plans. Of the original amount, I'm sorry, the first number I quoted was actually reduced. So the total original amount was $90,816.76. And that 2-year maintenance bond is considered to be 10% of that total amount. So minus the $8,256.07, we come with the possible $82,000 that can be returned to them today. So the ordinance, chapter 858-8 has 4 points about the release or reduction of performance bonds and financial guarantees. And we laid those out in the staff report, and that this reduction request meets those 4 points as needed. So it included in your packet are some of the original documentations, a stormwater post-construction inspection report from September, and then the final one from October. So any detailed questions about that post-construction inspection reports, I'll probably kind of defer to Kelsey Fatonia. But for this request overall, for LUC 2212, we do recommend approving the release of the performance bond for that 82,000 number, with the condition that updated as-built be submitted and approved for the drainage work as requested in Exhibit 7 prior to the release of the funds.
Thank you, Ms. Casilius. Do members of the Plan Commission have questions for staff? Yes, Mr.
And on page 28, there was an inspection report that mentioned that there were trees that had not been planted yet. Do you know any more details about that?
So the petitioner had some issues with the planting of vegetation that's needed for generally this whole area. Apparently the weather has been really poor for planting. So they are aware that there's still vegetation, including just seeding, that needs to be done for that drainage area, and the conditions simply haven't been compatible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And can you also confirm, are the trees needed as part of the drainage swale project, or is that tied to site plan for one of the other lots?
My understanding was that it was for the drainage.
For the it might be part of the subdivision, street trees.
I can clarify that comment with Erica.
Okay, there was a note on there about something related to planning rather
Yes.
than drainage, and I thought it was with the trees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a question, and maybe it's just a general. Concern is that the follow-up report from this month, the last report that we have, doesn't address specifically every point that's addressed in the previous report. So there's the swale age, and then there's just this general, this was addressed, but I don't know if it applies to that or not. So that, I like the way that it was done with different colors, denoting this is the newest note, this is the revised note. But I think I also would like, and not about this particular petition, but I'm concerned that 10% is certainly not enough. I don't think probably to do maintenance on this bond. So I do wonder if we need to look at our policy on this again regarding these performance bonds in general. So that's just a reminder and has nothing to do with this particular petition. I just want to make sure everything got done that was noted previously. It's not quite clear in that last set of notes.
Okay, do we hear from the petitioner on this?
Yes, since this is a regular session.
Yes, so if the petitioner or the petitioner's representative is present and would like to address the plan commission, if you're here in the room, let us know, or if you're online. Oh, I see Mr. Warren Cutshall is here. So if you are given the opportunity to unmute yourself by text services, we'd like to hear from you.
Hi, this is Warren Cutshall. Just checking to see if you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Thank you. So thanks to Anne for the overview. To answer a couple questions, the trees were related to Lot 5, which was the Duke laydown yard. And given the dryness of the soil and the lack of on-site water right now, we've deferred planting those until site conditions are appropriate. We were hopeful to do that this fall, but it's just been incredibly dry.
Yes, it has. Thank you, Mr. Cutshall. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, and also, yeah, to follow up on the inspection report, you know, the pictures were dated. There was a lot of work that was done subsequent to those pictures. So everything in the prior report was addressed, with the only exception, like I said, it's been extremely dry. So seeding has been done. Some of it has started growing, but without water, it's been extremely difficult to get, you know, full stabilization.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to now turn to the public. Are there members of the public who would like to speak in favor of this petition? If so, please make yourself known in the room, or raise your virtual hand on Zoom, or press *9 on the telephone. Okay, is there anyone a member of the public who would like to speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please make yourself known by raising your virtual hand or pressing *9 on the telephone. So I bring it back to members of the Plan Commission for further discussion and or a motion.
Yeah, one quick
Yes.
question. So on the condition, they still owe a drawing for they still owe address, correct? Okay, I just needed clarification.
Or before we release.
That's it.
Okay.
And then I just had that question about point number 2 in the September 28th report. gullies remaining on swale H, and it wasn't directly addressed in the October report, and I want to make sure that that's done, and I don't know if we can make that a condition of approval.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion?
Well, I guess, do we want to hear from anyone from stormwater about this? No one?
Kelsey's on.
Oh, is she?
She's a panelist, sorry.
Ah. That would help.
So Kelsey, is there anything you'd like to add?
Hi, yeah. So we did do another follow-up inspection on October 11th. The big item that we wanted to see completed was removal of temporary check dams. These were put in place during construction to protect some jurisdictional waters on the site. And so we have some more pictures of the site where those have been removed and additional stabilization has occurred. The only thing I can say about the stabilization issue with the lack of rain right now is that if we have straw and mats down in the swales, that's all we can do aside from asking for irrigation at this point. But yeah, I'm sorry that wasn't included in the packet, but we did complete another inspection.
So were the gullies in swale H addressed or not? Or do they not need to be because we're waiting on planting? Does that make sense?
I can share. I can share. And you want to share that page of the inspection report, or I can share it if I share your screen.
I'm sorry, I was trying to
Page
figure out,
19.
remember which one was swale H. Additional work was done on swale H as well.
Okay, great, thank you. All I needed
Thank you
there.
so much. Okay, well, is there a motion?
I guess I was watching, he said it was completed. Okay.
Staff's recommendation simply because I didn't see any conflicts with what they wanted and what we discussed, so I'm just gonna go ahead that way unless I miss comments by the planning commission. I'll follow, so I move that we approve the releasing of the performance bond in the amount of $82,560.69 with the condition that an updated as-built be submitted and approved for the drainage work as requested in Exhibit 7 prior to the release of funds, and this is in regard to case number SIA-22-26 at 3437 West Profile Parkway for the Pinnacle Business Park Major Subdivision Final Plat.
There a second?
Second.
Okay,
It's been moved and seconded to approve SIA 22-26, also in the agenda listed as LUC 22-12, which is Pinnacle Business Park major subdivision reduction of the SA only to the maintenance bond. And the motion is to approve the release of the funds, $82,560.69 with the condition that an updated as-built be submitted and approved for drainage work as requested in Exhibit 7 of the packet prior to release of funds. A vote yes is a vote in favor to release funds. John and Rick Randolph.
Yes.
Dee Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Ernie Garataz.
Yes.
Jared Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Margaret Clemens.
yes,
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
A motion carries 7-0.
thank you, Mr. Cutshall, thank you, we're looking forward to this development. So have a good evening. Okay. We'll
Thank you.
move on. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item under new business. First item, number 1 is SSS 22-8. Kyrie Debris, Bethel Lane Sliding Scale Subdivision Preliminary Plat, right-of-way width waiver requested. This is the final hearing for one parcel on 14 plus or minus acres at 4,500 East Bethel Lane. And I think Ms. Crecilius will be going over this with us again today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So the property is located in Bloomington Township. It's off of East Bethel Lane. So this is a preliminary plat request using the sliding scale subdivision process to create one new lot. The existing lot is 14 acres and zoned agricultural rural reserve and environmental constraints overlay area 3 or eco 3. So the property is currently unplatted. On the map, on the screen is the map showing the current zoning. So it is zoned agricultural rural reserve with conservation residential to the south of Bethel Lane. On the property, there are steep slopes present, but the areas needed, the buildable area required in order to subdivide and create one new buildable lot has been met. So this is the current kind of streetscape view provided by Google and Elevate of the current property. So the proposed parent parcel, which would be, the largest parcel, it would contain the majority of the property is currently developed with an older single-family residential home, a garage, and an agricultural barn, or at least a residential accessory structure. The property currently has 2 existing drives off of the property. Upon review, for a proposed new driveway, the highway department has required that the 2 existing drives be removed and that all access, the proposed access for lot 2 and lot 1 then share a driveway. So it's under kind of a proposed easement that we'll see on the preliminary plat, kind of goes down in the middle between the barn and the current detached garage. So I have a screenshots of this a little closer since it's so hard to see. So this is the preliminary plat. So from the area that's developed in the center between the shed and the garage, we can kind of see that easement that would access lot 2. So lot 2 would have approximately 6 acres and would have about an acre and a half of buildable area before it goes into steep slopes that are protected for in the eco area 3 and also drainage easements. So as we just pan down looking south, we can see that 100-foot drainage easement and the delineation of the 15% slope buildable line. And then towards the very bottom, see the very end of the plat. So due to a cancellation with plat committee and some rearranging, we had the plat committee heard this a little later than usual. So they did send a positive recommendation to the plan commission, but we did kind of have a discussion. So at our administrative meeting on October 4th, the plan commission felt it'd be a good idea to kind of explore some of these issues that have come up since the very first review. So the petitioners are requesting a right-of-way width waiver. So they are required to dedicate 45 feet of right-of-way along Bethel Lane, and the current existing home is at least 2 feet within that required amount of right-of-way dedication. So they already were proposing to only dedicate 40 feet of right-of-way, which originally the highway department was supportive of and planning was supportive of. But upon as they were looking into that, they discovered that the existing structure septic was also located within the right-of-way. So right now at our plan commission administrative meeting on October 4th, we discussed some ideas as to how to handle this right-of-way dedication with waiver now that there is a large area of their septic could possibly be in right-of-way. So staff went ahead and requested of the petitioner that they draft a possible written commitment, which was originally the petitioner's idea, where that would release Monroe County from liability of that septic if we were to pursue dedicating just 40 feet and that letting that existing septic remain in it and be used. And we also asked that they provide an alternative septic location. So go ahead and get a new septic location approved and have it shown on the preliminary plat. So we were exploring this idea of still accepting 40 feet of right of way, letting the septic in there. But at this point, with discussions with the highway department, We're not confident that this is the absolutely correct route. So we're requesting this information, and then we're still kind of including, we're thinking about the options, and I'm going to run through them here. So this is option one, where we have that possible commitment that releases Monroe County from liability of damage to the septic or having to replace it in the future. So this would, you can see the orange line is kind of supposed to represent just normal right-of-way dedication. Option two is the idea that we only dedicate the amount of right-of-way that could be accommodated, that could be dedicated with not having any of the septic field. So it'd be about 10 feet. And the property line and the road are kind of angled. So there is some tapering to the side. So the entire septic system would not be within right of way under this scenario. And then option three was to dedicate 40 feet for as far as you can, and then have it bump around the existing septic system. So these three ideas are listed in your packet to consider and mull over, and we still would like, more input from the highway department, because a natural answer has not quite come out yet. So although staff does support that initial 40 feet right of way, we're not sure how to handle the septic in the right of way now. So this is the right of way waiver findings that the petitioner put together. So that is, fairly supportive, because it's an existing home that has been there for an extremely long time. So the recommendation right now is that staff recommends denying the waiver of the final hearing of Plan Commission due to wanting that new information about a possible alternative septic site for lot one. And then in general, we drafted this idea of, that in general for the preliminary plat and the waiver, our recommendation is pending. Overall, the preliminary plat, we've outlined a few conditions that we know will have to be included. Specifically, or most importantly, maybe would be that under the highway department, they would have 1 year from recording to remove the existing driveways and combine them into that one shared driveway for both lots. I know that's a little complicated, so definitely let me know what your questions are.
Okay, Mr. Enright Randolph?
Thanks, Ann. This question is going to be more directed towards highway. Do we know if there has been any other, waiver that has been approved with the dedication of that right of way on Bethel Lane currently? Okay, so I guess that could be a question for planning to look into is that stretch of Bethel Lane, has there been any approved waivers to reduce the dedicated right of way that we're looking at? Because I think that's significant, because if we're already looking at kind of a piecemeal a dedication of a right of way through Bethel Lane, then it could hold some relevance to how we decide to look at this. Yeah. So am I saying that clearly enough?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'd like to give Lisa a chance to weigh in. Ms. Ridge is, we're lucky to have her here.
Yeah, he's not here too.
Yeah.
So, and I apologize, I wasn't at the October 4th meeting, I was at the county council meeting. But I have, I've talked to many in the department about this issue, and some of the sliding scale subdivisions that we've had over the past. Bethel Lane is a little bit different. It's a road classification that's a lot higher than the waivers that we've accepted in the past. Would we prefer to have the 40-foot right of way? We do. I do not prefer option 3. We have an existing situation that exists on that, and that's the Gifford Road that we just ran into for paving. We want to come in and ditch, and years ago when there was some right-of-way dedication, a piece was left out of this parcel. So we were not allowed to ditch. They would not give us the permission to be able to ditch, and now we have a drainage issue on a newly paved road. But it would be our recommendation that we do take the 40-foot right away.
Thank you. Thank you very much for adding those insights. And did you say that Mr. Satterley is on the phone or here? If he has anything he'd like to add, it's fine if you don't. But since the primary issue is the road and the easement, if you have anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe there could be an easement for the property owner on Monroe County right away to allow their septic field to remain until, at time it's replaced or relocated possibly.
Well, Shirley is here.
So I don't think they would need an easement. It's their property. The county, if it wants to come in there and put in a road, it's gonna have to deal with this.
See, the way that when we do subdivisions and dedicate right away, we're actually only getting an easement. We're not getting fee simple property, right? But it is an easement to us. So therefore, we don't need an additional easement to the property owner. Is that correct? Okay. But and that does not.
Liability of the subject. I mean, at this time, we don't have any plans at this time for a relocation. But if we go in there and do ditching or our right of way, that septic is there.
Do you think? You know the contour of the property.
I think every road could. Step through.
But it is. I mean, I guess anything you do in that right of way, you damage the septic.
Unless we get.
Unless you get a written commitment.
It would take a commitment, not a condition.
Right. So it sounds like we're in a position where we still have to work out some language. So we can't really do anything with this petition today anyway. I think that Ann, we communicated with the petitioners and their representative to get us those items, but I don't think that they've had a chance to get the septic soil test for the draft commitment. Is that correct?
Correct. We have communicated this, and we have not heard back yet.
Okay, so we do not have something to vote on quite yet with the draft. I like option one personally. It seems like it's a quid pro quo. It's a give and take. It's sliding scale and a year of 2 driveways, and then in return, this is what they will do. And that septic is pretty old. So I think the other reason we want to do this is because we don't want to leave this in a situation where a septic is replaced where it is now. Right. That somebody, if they're going to replace their septic, would then put it somewhere else. And this is the best way to ensure that, I think. So I don't know how others feel, but if we can move toward getting some language, I think that would be really fair and give some time to plan.
Mr. Enright, Randall?
That option, I guess, parallel with identifying a new location to put a septic, if that's what ends up happening. That's not stipulated in option one, correct?
Option one, accepting right of way with a reduced right of way with the septic, and it would require that we have this written commitment that outlines the A and B here, release Monroe County from any damage or harm, and requires them to relocate the septic outside of the right of way if it ever fails. And that would be a part of option one.
Right, and I'm saying, just one step further, actually identifying where that proposed septic might go.
Yep, and that's
it has to be relocated.
And that's bullet point number 2.
Okay, so that covers that. It doesn't jump out to me like that, but okay.
Okay, well, are there other questions, Mr. Garrett?
So to be clear,
When that's an option. That's option two.
what was zeroing in on is 40 feet to the county. And then everybody lives their life. like they would be if this subdivision had never happened.
Yes.
And they're not gonna have to move the septic until it fails.
That's right.
So they can still live with what they've got. Because the sliding scale is what's causing this situation. Nothing else is changing out there, except for the fact that the sliding scale, well, it's a choice they're making. I understand that. It's still a pretty high burden. When they've got a permit, you know, what the details were of 85, anybody can guess. But they've got a permit, they didn't redneck something in and just decided to build in there next to the road so they could pump the tank easier. At least that's not indicated to me. And the other thing is, if you look at the elevations on the contour there, and I respect what Lisa's saying, because, you know, road ditches, side ditches anywhere benefit. But this is pretty much at the high point, I think, of the road, if I understand it. So if anywhere where ditching is the least necessary, it's typically at the high point. So because the water is going to cascade. So as long as they don't have.
Well, I would like to invite, if there the petitioners here, the petitioner's representative, I'd like to give you an opportunity to address the plan commission at this time.
Certainly.
So please state your name.
So my name is Keith DeVries. I am one of the petitioners. I guess Mark Tyree is my co-petitioner. I don't work for the health department. I don't know if there's anyone from the health department here, but my understanding of action to be taken in the event of a failed septic system is that a state permit is required, which requires a soil test at that place. One of the purposes of the soil test is to ensure that you're not putting it on top of an existing septic field. So I would contend that doing the site selection and soil test today is unnecessary and overly burdensome, because on failure, you can't put the septic where the septic is. And at that point, the 40-foot setback and right-of-way reservation, not setback, right-of-way reservation, usually documented. Well, so that those are conditions that exist. As soon as the sliding scale subdivision is approved, that protect the county in the event of a failure. So what I believe is a reasonable approach is use an indemnification to the county until that failure happens. And that document has been provided in a draft form to the county.
Question, Mr. Henry?
I was waiting until I think I'm done.
Yeah, my thoughts are just making sure that there's available space. Soil type does matter. One of two counties that do soil boring to kind of make sure that we're putting septics in, you know, the right type of soil. That's kind of where my view is let's just be proactive about this. We don't know what Beth Lane is going to turn out to be. As it was stated, it's a larger part of the county. And I brought up the facts that Bernie brought up, that this isn't, you know, the reason that we're addressing this is because we're looking at the sliding scale. And, you know, if that doesn't move forward, we're still in the same position. But I think identifying a location could be helpful. Now, I understand that puts another onerous burden, property owner, which typically means a cost, but, you know, I'm somewhat amenable to that whole thing. They're requesting us not to, you know, waive the final hearing, so there could be more discussion. At this point, I'm leaning towards staff's recommendation, but things start getting kind of tight in this area. And so I'm kind of curious, where would a septic go? Has planning even kind of looked at it, or does planning even kind of scheme it over just to get a feel of if there is, appropriate space to put in an alternative location for a septic or a new septic installation, I guess.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, Tron, the soil types are something that we are taking into consideration. Whenever there's a new subdivision, we do require there to be septics or capacity letters for sewer connections so that when we're creating a new lot, we have a guarantee that that lot is buildable with capacity for sewer, septic, electric, water. All of those things are figured out at the time of approval of the plat. So we would still recommend, if we're saying that that septic cannot go back in that spot, there needs to be an alternative location for septic to go, because we are creating that as a lot separate from another space. That would be our suggestion.
I don't. Am I allowed to speak? I'm not
Yes,
sure.
yes.
Completely understand that scenario, but if the septic were to fail, we would still be in the same place, and you would still be in the same place in terms of the protocol that you're wanting to see happen. I feel like what would be amicable, what we're trying to do is be amicable in this situation to say, we recognize that the septic is in the right of way. Obviously, that was put in long before I owned the property. Then I've, provided a letter saying if the septic fails, I would take personal responsibility to pay for that. What I'm trying to do is not continue to kick the can down the road to another meeting, You have lives that we like to try to get on with, if you know what I mean. And the parcel of land that I own there, like I said, wouldn't be changed. And if it were to be changed, it'd have to go through your approval to be changed. And so I don't. What I'm trying to say is I'm not sure what is gained by delaying any further to say. I mean, I feel like we've jumped through all of the necessary hoops to say we're willing to, abide by whatever rules you're saying, just to do soil samples. Plot out an additional location. That puts the burden back on us again, and then pushes it even further down the road where we have to delay longer to get this thing finalized. But it doesn't, in my opinion, I'm not sure what the downside is on your protection. Because we've already said, if the septic were to fail, we would relocate it. If the septic were to fail, we would have to relocate it.
And that's where the rub is it's not full on conclusion that there's a perfect spot for a new septic. And I guess we put that same kind of regulation and compliance measure on all new lots in that have proposed areas. So sure, you could go with the assumption that, hey, we're going to find one when it comes time to need it, but this is kind of more of an insurance that there is one. So I hear you loud and clear, but that's kind of where, my decision-making kind of falls in, is that we put this on other new developers that are seeking to do a sliding scale and have a proposed septic. You have one built, it's a very unique situation. And honestly, I want to see this move forward. And the only reason we're here again is because you want to do something with that property and you find that the septic is in the right of way. But we can't just look at this document and say, hey, there's a suitable spot somewhere else. And that's kind of that ambiguity there, I think needs to be cleared out, because that's kind of the way I'm looking at this. And again, I'm amenable. I don't know what the cost is, but
I would say it's not so much cost, it's time, because to get scheduled soil samples can be a 2 to 3 months. A circumstance would be available contracting. Yeah, outsider, so it's hard for me to understand.
I can't quite tell. Is that Tron speaking?
no,
It's the petitioner. Can you hear them okay, Ann? Or should they stand up closer to the mic?
No, I don't think it's gonna get better. I thought I couldn't quite tell what was going on.
Okay.
So I can project more. What I'm struggling to understand is what would happen. Let's hypothetically say that just walked away from the whole process and the plat didn't happen and the septic did fail, what would hypothetically happen in that circumstance? Because Monroe County cares about soil and because, what would happen in that circumstance if soil wasn't suitably found on that existing parcel or that? Help me understand that.
Yes, I think the glaring thing that we are taking into account with your example is the fact that there's now going to be a house added into the lot, the property area. And so that takes out some potential septic fielding area from consideration. And so that's why
So I
this
would,
is,
I would
right?
counter argue that it's so far away that it doesn't.
I think that, you know, I would, you know, this process is early. But in the end, I think that the good people around the table are trying to save you financial ruin from building something that in the end would not work out. If the worst case scenario undeveloped. If I'm correct, so we do have your interests at heart, but I don't know exactly how to reconcile your urgency with the potential danger and financial danger that you could face if things don't work out in the optimistic sense. Mr. Enright Randolph?
Well, yeah, I was kind of curious. It looked like they wanted, Tammy wanted, so if they couldn't build a septic, if there wasn't a place after the first one failed, what would occur? It's like if.
I've seen scenarios with the health department where they desperately have to fall back to a holding tank, which is not ideal, which is not what we want in the county. I will say that as a reminder, this is in Eco Area 3.
Yes.
We are in a sensitive watershed. We also have fragipams that are out there that I'm not sure septics can be located on top of those clay lenses, and I know those are there for a fact. Deal with those. And so I think it is important that we at least have a soil test that has that alternative site. Those are my points.
Just out of curiosity on what after that parcels, 14 down to 9 to 8, 7. What's the likelihood that on an 8-acre parcel you won't find a suitable septic site?
No, until you got a soil test for it.
Yes, Mr. Veritas.
Oh, I mean, listen to Mr. Degree, excuse me. You know, there are other alternative ways to put in set. Are there wells on this property? There's no wells on this property. It's sort of by the. Two things. One, you know, soils are important. It's important. System. They're second important. It's being third important. So there are design options out there. The county accepts all three of them. I understand where Mr. Degrees is going. Having an idea exactly where that future septic would go is important. But again, where this septic is, it was done in accordance with what the county had prescribed. It is a process that we're in that requires it to be looked at. There's no evidence of it failing. So I think the soils out there indicate that it's probably a good host site for a septic. And looking at the area to the west of the existing driveway will be easily. It is a strong delay. March of 2022. And how long? Yeah, I understand. I'm just thinking of.
Yeah.
So, and then how long did it take? You have a site set for lot 1, is that correct?
Lot 1 is the one we're discussing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, excuse me. So you got a septic site for the other lot, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, so how long did it take for that process?
Depends on.
How long did it take whenever you made the application for your septic permit? For you to be able to get somebody out there to assess and get your permit?
I think about 2 months.
And that's my point in this whole process. So again, I understand, and you don't want to put you guys in a position of this kind of liability. And I think thought that every option that you guys are not in the position of liability. Put the burden back on us now. They just another essentially 2 more months just so we can get to a center. Septic system that honestly has not failed. I didn't put it in, it was approved, by the county before. It hasn't failed, and I'm not sure why we need to delay further on a septic system that's currently working. Try to get this process moving forward.
Sounds like there's still issues with the language itself, though, and it doesn't sound like anybody's arrived. Between legal and highway and planning that we've arrived at language that's amenable at this point, so I don't know how we could move forward today. Anyway, I
don't think there's a way to move forward without the draft commitment that you guys would like to put forward, that the planning commission has to review through. So today is a non-option, but I think if you're asking for us to make this decision next month, and your thought is, I won't have a soil test or any kind of evidence for you by that point. That's what I understood your comment.
So we understand again about the language, and that's fine. What we're trying to say is, I think we've shown good faith to say we're willing to try to work with the county to make this thing possible. What we're saying is this way. Again, I understand that, there are different conditions in soil, analysis more important. But we're talking about a working septic system. We're talking about, in my opinion, an 11-acre parcel that probably has a good amount of places to put a septic system.
You leave writing a written commitment that says you agree to relocate the septic outside of the right of way, correct?
Correct.
And you will not have a location for that to go without a soil test.
They've already provided it. Thinking that's
Okay, so you won't have a location for it to go, but you're committing that it will go outside of the right of way.
correct.
So that's, I think, where we're getting stuck.
But is there a possibility to continue this to our admin meeting?
We could make the.
That's kind of trying our best to appease.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so if we could have a motion to continue this to the admin meeting of the plan commission, we'll hear public comment at that time.
My understanding is they won't be able to have the soil test by that time.
That's
So
right.
I don't know how many of the plan commission members right now would say that they would be willing to hear it without the soil test. Or if you would like to have the soil test, so I don't wanna.
Is it start?
I have a question. I would be satisfied if there was just a conversation with the health department. And the health department affirming that based on the location and relative soil types of that area, that there's a high likelihood of there being secondary placement without an actual soil test.
May not be willing to commit to that. I'm just.
But I mean, that's why I said a high likelihood, not a.
It's,
Just in that same line
Yes.
of discussion, there could be other information. Typically they do soil boring, in multiple locations. I know this one, I mean, if you even look at the sketch of where they were proposing it, it's so outdated. I'm not sure if we can find any great records in the health department, but they could have already done some other soil boring in that area, but I don't think that type of work was performed back then. All right.
It would still be valid. So,
A good point was made by Bernie, and that is, we have several different options for septic, fields here. I don't know of many places that have a pump tank. There's almost always a way to get septic taken care of here. And I tend to agree with the petitioner that identifying the secondary septic field is burdensome and wouldn't occur without the subdivision. You know, and they would have the same situation if it failed, regardless of the subdivision. So, Presby can go over
That's what
an
it
existing.
benefits. President. Does allow for that. Placement only, I'm not suggesting that if the existing site would fail, that it would be replaced within the 40 feet right of way. If that's the route we go for the nation. But again, if you scale that area off, which I did roughly, there's a rough room. But over that over, putting it back on the south. And, you know, it wasn't too long ago that we had a condition that still make this, I don't know. But anything that was 10 acres or more, septic permit wasn't even necessary for subdivision plat. This is anything. That's fine. Because I don't think this is going to get voted.
And it is, I want to make sure we all are in agreement too, because we had run into a situation where we were continuing petitions to the administrative meeting that required a vote, and there was some discomfort with that. So before we agreed to continue this to the administrative meeting, I want to be sure that everybody's comfortable taking a vote. I don't want that discussion to happen at the administrative meeting.
If I could just say one last thing, and again, I understand that there's not going to be votes, and that's fine, and that's not necessarily the outcome that I'm even remotely interested in. What I'm kind of looking at is not continuing to add more work that's going to take an absorbent amount of time. I feel like, you know, at the end of the day, I would be taking on all of the liability and all of the risks, and the county would still have the choice to fight away. Whether the septic fail or not, whether we identify a second location or not. And so what I'm saying is, you know, the person that would be holding the bag at the end of the day, and I'm the one saying I'd like to move forward. So.
Do you have your hand raised?
Yes, thank you, I do. Because we continue something for further discussion and waiting for some information to the admin meeting, doesn't mean that we don't then vote on it at the regular meeting, because this is not the final hearing. It was the request for a waiver. So I don't see why that's any issue. And it does sound to me that this probably, until we get some pieces put together, it sounds to me like that we ought to have a continuance on it.
Yeah, so if there's no action tonight, it would just go forward to the next regular meeting, which would be on
Yes.
November 15th. So that would be the no action. If the plan commission wants to vote to continue this and make the final hearing be the administrative meeting, that would take a vote to move it to the November 1st administrative meeting. We would need to make that a regular meeting. I would be just as happy waiting until the 15th, because it seems like there's still some things to be worked out. And I want to make sure that all those bases are covered so that we don't have to continue it again, right? I mean, that's my worry, is that we'll end up continuing it again, and that's not appropriate, I don't think. But, you know, so for me, I would rather just let things go till November. It's 2 more weeks.
Jerry, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Margaret's going.
yes,
That's one of the reasons. Have you talked to the health department at all about their schedule would be? I know that there's a delay. Believe me.
I have an additional comment. I think it goes to Jackie's question of kind of maybe showing a little of our hands. There's been a lot of discussion, and you know, like I said, I'm kind of amenable to kind of either of the outcomes. I would really be curious if highway looked at this again and was able to maybe give us a, you know, a better indication of maybe what a future plan might be. Not sure how much that would weigh on my consideration, and ultimately, I'm definitely going to support kind of highway's position with the dedication of the right of way. The septic is kind of a sticking point, so I'm trying to give you a show of my cards, I guess. Not really sure which way I'll lean. There's been some good discussions. I'd hate for you to show up at the next meeting and then we hash this all out again, and then next thing you know, it doesn't come to a vote. You know, it's even further down. So that's where I'm at currently. It's just what I wanted to make a comment.
Julie, I just want to be sure, were you indicating that you were uncomfortable with the idea of going back to voting on petitions at the administrative council meetings? Because
I just this one in particular, I just feel like we need more than 2 weeks on this. There are too many unanswered questions. There's too much, too many details that we're all seem to be asking for.
well, since there's not a indication that in principle you disagree with it, but it is specific on this one, I'm gonna leave it open that if we continue, we can vote on it. And if the materials all fall in place where we have the information we need, then we can. If they're not there, they're not there. So I do have a motion for continuance.
A second.
Okay,
Okay, so this will be a motion and a second to continue the Harry DeVries Bethel Lane sliding scale subdivision preliminary plat to the administrative meeting for a final hearing on November 1st. A vote in favor is a vote to hear this at the administrative meeting in lieu of hearing it possibly at the November 15th regular meeting.
Could I clarify? I'm sorry. I thought that the motion was to continue it to the next regular meeting.
Okay, do you want to retract your second?
Yes, I do.
Okay, does anyone else wish to second then the,
I'll second.
okay,
And again, the reason why, because for some reason that doesn't, the clarity isn't there, but it's straight. We've still got the ability to hear the plan commission.
correct.
So what it does in my mind is it just gives the option, if in Jerry's words, things fall in line. Voila, they're in line. If not, we can still move it to the regular plan commission and the petitioner have the opportunity to have those problems.
okay.
And I don't think that's slack. I think that's a
So it's been motioned and seconded to continue this to the November 1st administrative meeting. A vote in favor is a vote to hear it at the administrative meeting. Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
Dee Owens,
No,
Julie Thomas. No. Bernie Garitas.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Okay, the motion has failed 4-2, so you want it to automatically continue then to the, it'll have to continue to the November 15th. From last,
No other choice.
okay, so it'll be heard at the November 15th Plan Commission meeting. Okay. So then we're moving on to the text.
Before we do that, if I might, I think for our next administrative meeting, we need to look at our rules of procedure.
Okay,
So if you would please distribute those in advance of that meeting so that we can discuss whether or not we want to make adjustments to the rules of procedure for specific things. The question of whether or not we will vote on petitions at administrative meetings is one in particular that I feel like should be discussed. Because I don't think the rules of procedure speak to that.
I'm saying, if it thumbs up, it thumbs down.
I have a point of
Or at least a manner in which we would determine how to do that.
order clear. Not too sure.
Yeah, but
Have a comment. If we don't do we have rules of procedure to adopt? We don't follow Robert rules of procedure, right? It isn't like the language pretty flexible.
We have our
there?
own rules, though.
Yeah, so we have our own rules, right? Okay, so it just doesn't address this particular.
Right,
issue.
it addresses like what time we wrap up business, we won't entertain a new petition after 10 PM, et cetera.
I think it's a great idea. I just wanted to get a sense of.
Our next item is ZOA 22-5. This is an amendment to the Monroe County zoning ordinance, chapter 803, pre-existing non-conforming uses. And request has been made for waiver of final hearing.
Yeah, I'll present this one. So this is an amendment to chapter 803, which deals with pre-existing non-conforming uses. Particular part that jumped out at me one day was this section here. It's dealing with non-conforming parcels and or structures. And we have a provision in there that says any legal pre-existing non-conforming structure damaged by fire, flood, or explosion or other casualty can be reconstructed basically on its same footprint. I would say that that's not always true in a flooding situation. As floodplain administrator for Monroe County, I saw that there was maybe a loophole that someone might try to use in that case if they had a flood damage. Flood actually has to follow. I've done this amendment here. So however, if the legal pre-existing non-conforming structure is within a special flood hazard area as specified in chapter 808, in compliance with chapter 808 applies. So I'm just simply tying those together so that we're not, we're audited by the DNR, by the state. So we need to make sure that we're following state code and federal regulations. And that's what this amendment is about. And then while we were here in this chapter correcting it, a lot of us planners have kind of wondered about the language within this section here. So we're kind of removing any like discrepancies between the zonings for the chapter 833 zones and just removing that and allowing for any expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling can be enlarged as long as certain criteria are met. And then the criteria that we also changed down here was dealing more with expansion can occur as long as it doesn't increase the floor area by more than 25%. However, if the non-conforming dwelling is a mobile home or manufactured home, it may be replaced by another manufactured home, as long as it had that third stipulation there. So we are just kind of, we've kind of discovered that you can't replace a mobile home with a mobile home, which is the language we have here. Mobile homes don't have a certain code requirement sticker anymore, and so we're replacing that with manufactured home. And the fact that manufactured homes are having literally dropped in language we thought of, yeah.
It's don't like the wheels on it. Well, and actually, it sits on a foundation. Most of them.
Yes, foundation.
Most of them are on a fixed foundation, whereas mobile.
I mean, I don't get into that building part of it.
Right, well, I mean, I just,
Expansion.
no, I was a little bit curious about that because, I mean, I know there are still mobile homes, we even have mobile parks that still exist. But I don't know if that language is, what you're telling me is that if somebody has a mobile home that's in a non-conforming situation, they can't bring in another mobile home.
I believe the date is like 1974. Yeah, 1974. So anything older than that is classified as a mobile home. They don't meet current building code. We don't allow those to be located in our county.
Okay, what if somebody finds a vintage restored mobile home? It's exactly like the one they go in there.
If they don't have, so this is for specifically replacing in kind without getting, a setback variance. So this is for pre-existing non-conforming dwellings. Let's say the home is in the setbacks. if they don't want to have to get a variance, we can use this, but let's say they do want to do a mobile home, in that scenario, I would think we just have to take it to the PCA.
Okay, well, I mean, it is possible that, somebody would have a mobile home that
Yes.
has been in the family and it's been maintained and they want, there are not a lot of them, I don't
There's
imagine.
not a lot, yeah. Yeah, we can. But yeah, this is just something that's compliant with the rest of our.
Right, on the face of it, I think we're better off to move forward
Government.
and only have mobile home designated parks.
Yeah. We are removing the without regard to 35%, so they can't on the size.
Right.
It still stay within the range of what the footprint was, give or take 25% of the original.
Okay.
Yes.
I would just like to thank Tammy for bringing these kind of conflict of, I don't know, you said it better, just these ordinances that kind of conflict with each other. So this kind of streamlines it. I also want to bring some attention or recognition that she was honored with an award recently and asked him if he would like to share that with the group.
I think it was that's not what it was. It was something like
Class clown?
most improved floodplain manager or flood management.
CFM certified floodplain. Yeah.
The word's in my office if anybody really wants to read it.
Anyways, I think it was great. It was submitted by someone with the Department of DNR. And just kudos and great. And this.
When's the parade? I don't want to miss it. We have any staff reports?
Well, this is.
we want
Oh, we need, okay.
Yeah.
I knew there was way more.
I'm gonna remove all of the revision.
I'll second.
Okay, and does that include the waiver of the final hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Which
so,
means it goes up back now.
well, it goes to the
On file.
planning commissioners.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So,
Just a comment, since we got 5 people. You know, I think one thing about the mobile homes and diversity manufacturing. You know, there are distinctions based on the workmanship and standards, I think, and that's great. How they were built, and that's why I think we've gotten away from it. Still see the mobile home manufacturing both as being a great stair step. For a lot of people who normally not be able to someone in the house. Independent life, independent space versus limited apartment or something like that. So, you know, that's one of the hesitations I had with this is a pretty rush. I don't think mobile homes technically illegal in Canada. Mobile homes. Mobile homes.
so the definition for single family in our ordinance does exclude mobile home. States it has to be after 19. So if we want to have it on. I think that we've had people in the past that have bought mobile homes to say these could go to a mobile home park, or we can talk to you about how to petition to get it. But the HUD certification is a big piece of that safety standpoint, especially the wind damage.
And the other point about the flooding area, a lot of under the circumstances we had. But, you know, back when I was practice time, of the DNR, FEMA, they were going to make that much of an happen. Go past the city building, the fire station there, go up against the building, you've got that cliff, and you've got the tree. It's about 70. The homes up in there, with visions and made maps, and Larry Wilson did a great job. Prior to Tammy, they were calling houses in the floodplain because they just lived like this map. So there are certain circumstances that I think we're leaving members of the public exposed or something that may not happen. It's gonna be an older home, it's gonna have that situation. If it's in a special flood hazard area, time of their purchase or closing, they're gonna have to get flood insurance, which is what the purpose is for. This is a little bit different than the multi-million-dollar mansions that are on the west coast that are waiting for the surf to come up and wash their house away so they can build a team. So I don't see these as two scenarios. I respect Andy's effort trying to make it consistent, but it's really pushing it all the way to that end. But it's not that delineation. Maybe from ownership. So those are my, so I don't need to sandbag on it, but as I was looking to our members and see what we have five here, I just wanted to make that point and discuss it out loud because I do have reservations.
Okay. So there's been a motion and a second. I'll call the roll for ZOA
Is there any other discussion on that?
Public comment. Oh, and I do have to leave soon, by the way.
I've
Thank
had to use the bathroom for 20 minutes. But then.
Okay, there's no public comment, call the question.
Okay, let me just double check.
You calling the question because I'm.
The appointed
So you want
commission
to-
points, I think that if anybody's got any comments, I think it merits a little bit of discussion.
Does anyone have any comments? You want?
I want to maybe speak to the mapping.
Yeah.
So we've been using FEMA flood maps for quite some time. The state of Indiana passed statutory regulations that we use DNR best available flood mapping now. And so we use FEMA where there are flood insurance studies. And where they've, done those very detailed, and they follow the contours usually when we look at those with our maps. Yes, and now we have approximate zone AE and approximate zone A. And these are the DNR best available maps that we're required to use now. So there's times where we actually don't look at FEMA maps at all, and I'll tell people for insurance purposes, you may be triggered if you have a mortgage that's federally backed. But otherwise, for permitting purposes, oftentimes I don't look at a FEMA map at all. Best available data maps. Trying to tell you about the conference.
Yes, and I've been using a lot of those services myself for quite some time. I'm really excited that. Or-
They are a lot.
manage them.
Oh, the DNR. It's
Yeah.
very helpful.
Well, it's real-time data, which is significant.
So great.
Mr. Giritas, do you think your concern could be addressed if this was looked at, maybe at the ORC again?
No, I don't think that's necessary. I really don't, because I don't know that, I even rely on the technical expertise of staff. But we need to at least consider these points when we're looking at how these devastating effects on people's lives are gonna affect them devastatingly if we box them into a corner, right? Where there's nothing to do, especially on chances of shorter years. Correctly said, it's 1% effective. I don't know that this is. It's already in the house, and I'm not proposing. The floodplain, part of the special flood. Infrastructure, it's when people have established lives. Probably. Very likely. Flooding in which way, which is flooding, to get sure clean the service out there to clean up the. Things to get to go back there. That's the core of our concern. Floods ain't no risk.
Sure. We may have. Jerry, did you want to call to see if anyone else in the public had any comments?
I didn't know we had any more comment.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak to this petition? If so, raise your hand. All right, and there's no one here in person. So if you would proceed with the question.
The vote, okay, so the motion is to send a favorable recommendation to county commissioners for COA 22-5. Vote yes is a vote in favor to waiver of final hearing and the edits as shown in the staff packet of chapter 803. Cases. Brown and Wright Randolph.
Definitely supportive of trying to address these concerns, but with Mr. Garrett's comments and, you know, I've always been, you know, looking at these things kind of from both angles, and I would hate to potentially box people in. So I think it's worth another conversation. But ultimately, I will be supportive of addressing these concerns. If I just want to see if we can explore his concerns and if there's any way we can address those. So I'm going to vote no.
Okay. D Owens,
Yes.
Julie Thomas. Yes. Bernie Garritas.
And again, this is a recommendation.
Jared Pittsford.
No.
Okay, and Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Okay. So it's a failed motion, so it did not pass yes or no. So is there another motion, or do we want to just hear it the next one?
Is there anything that's pushing the need to pass this immediately?
I think it's just cleaning up the language. I still think chapter 808 is gonna trump anything that does come our way. If someone doesn't meet their 50% requirement, they do need to completely upgrade to all the elevation and flood proofing that's required under the state statute and federal regulations. This is just cleaning and making it so someone maybe isn't confused. And it still would be applicable if they were outside of a special flood hazard area. Yeah, they could still rebuild in that same spot if they felt like they. That's a special, if it is a special flood hazard area, I still think no matter what, more restrictive of our ordinance would work, and chapter 808 would still apply.
Clarifying,
This is just a cleanup.
clarifies things, so.
We get it in the zoning. Yes, from the zoning ordinance updated.
So no action, is I think what we'll probably be taking tonight, and we'll just hear it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Probably discuss.
If you want to clear it on ORC, you can, and I'm assuming that no reports from staff.
Okay, I do now just see the attendee with their hand raised. I think I'll be able to entertain that. Okay. We do have comments that.
We want to warn.
Yeah. Up to you as the chair.
I,
Yeah, okay, so we can entertain, because we have, at the end anyways, is the public comment for items not on the agenda, but. Randy, do you want to unmute? Can you hear us?
Yeah, the question I had was, and it sounds like it's just going to continue to the next meeting for discussion. That was the primary objective or
Okay.
primary question. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll have us at the next meeting. Thank you. Is there-
David, do you have anything?
Okay,
Okay, and just so everybody knows, we did have legal update before we came in, so we're then on top of that with executive.
thank you, everyone.
All right, motion for adjournment.
Move.
All in favor, go.